Hi folks! The Filipina here, and it's time for another candlelight culture video. You guys really seem to like these, where I tell you about the unusual quirks and strange customs in the Philippines. And this time, we're gonna cover a lot of ground, from why we hate our armpits to the unusual things we do in the bedroom. Now, for you safety minded folks who kept saying I shouldn't have candles on a carpet, I put the rug away this time, even though I'd rather get wax on a cheap throw rug than on the floor. And if I caught the carpet on fire, it'd be a viral video. But I guess it's not worth the risk. So I hope you appreciate the gesture. Now, before we start, I want to mention that if any of you folks notice anything strange while you were here that you want me to include in the next episode, you just leave them in the comment section and I'll be happy to cover them. So, first off, some of you asked me why Filipinos often don't hold doors open for the women and wondered if the Philippines was becoming like the West, where you guys might actually get yelled at by women who think it's some kind of insult, like a man was implying that she couldn't do it herself. But no, that's not the reason here at all. We do practice some forms of chivalry, but for whatever reason, opening a door for a woman just never made it onto the list. You still have plenty of people who might hold the door for you, and a lot of people who don't. But it's not based on gender like it is in the West. I was amazed how men in the South would race to the door first, open it, and then step back to let a woman enter. And it didn't have anything to do with how cute she was. It was just a common courtesy, and it always made me smile. You don't see a lot of that here because people tend to be more concerned with themselves, which is why you'll notice that sometimes Filipinos just stop at the bottom of an escalator while they decide where to go, even though there's other people coming down behind them. It's not that they're trying to be rude, they just don't take anyone else into consideration. It's the same with traffic. In the US, at least in the places where I went to, people were always motioning for the other guy to go first and stopping to let someone pull out in front of them. But don't expect that here. In the Philippines, you just pull right up in the traffic and push your way into whatever lane you want and dare the other guy to do anything about it. It's kind of a me first mindset that often surprises you guys because you've been told how friendly Filipinos are. And we are friendly, just not in traffic. Our rules of the road aren't what you're used to, and many of the things you expect to be common sense just don't exist here. For instance, if you're driving down the road, especially at night, you expect to see warning signs if the lane in front of you is about to end, right? Don't count on it here. You could be traveling in the dark, just minding your own business, and without any flashing lights or orange cones, the road just comes to an end. Why do we do it like that? And why aren't people dying by the thousands? Well, the fact is, people are getting killed, including my little niece's grandfather, who died when his motorbike hit an unmarked pile of gravel that was just piled up in the middle of the road without any warning signs. He flipped over the handlebars and broke his neck on the rocks. And now little Gia will never get to know her granddad. So there's a really good reason why the cars here don't have cruise control. There ain't no way you can just set your speed and relax. It might be better to let a professional drive you, like in a taxi cab. But even then, you might be in for another Filipino surprise. Without warning, your cab might pull over and stop by the side of the road, and before you can ask what's going on, the driver gets out and turns his back to you, unzips, and starts peeing in public. Then he gets back in the car and continues driving like nothing weird just happened, because to us, it didn't. You guys would be arrested and put on a list of offenders, but for us, that's just a regular sight, which might also explain the funky smell in certain areas. Now let's talk about some unusual things you've noticed about Filipinas. If you've dated a Filipina long enough, you probably heard her say that she hates her nose, hates her skin, hates her teeth, and hates her armpits. Now I've already made videos about why we think our skin is too dark, even though it's one of the features you like best about us. And we also detest our flat noses, despite the fact that you folks don't seem to mind. As far as teeth, all you have to do is look inside our mouths. And unless we were born incredibly lucky, it's pretty obvious why we don't like what we see. But armpits? What's that all about? If there's a Filipina in the room with you while you're watching this, she's probably nodding her head in agreement right now because she knows what I know. We get graded on our armpits. Not by you guys, but by each other. You guys think it's silly, but to us, it's serious business because it's a status symbol to have nice pits. Filipinos often have dark skin under there, and sometimes it has creases and little bumps on it, like chicken skin. If you have that kind of pit, you keep your arms down and never raise your hand in a sleeveless top. If you do, the other women's eyes will go right to your pits and give you a look of disgust if they don't pass inspection. I really don't know how it all started, and it seems odd that Filipinos worry so much about it, especially since guys couldn't care less. But that's just the way it is. So right now, you're probably wondering if I have ugly pits. Well, if I had to grade them, I'd say they're about average. But in the interest of full disclosure, I'll do something scandalous and actually show them on camera. I'm feeling brave right now. Okay. Armpit. Ta-da! Well, I guess they're okay. I got lines over there. And the good thing is, I only shave once a year because I'm basically hairless. That's the perk of being Asian. And if other women don't like them, well, at least it ain't my problem. Okie dokie. Now that's something most Filipinos don't want on camera, but we sure do take pictures of just about anything else. The little Asian that's snapping photos is a well-known stereotype, but we Filipinos take it to a whole new level. We take pictures of our food, pictures of ourselves eating the food, pictures of the place we ate it, and pictures of the car we drove to get there. Any self-respecting Filipino has a phone that's absolutely jammed with the most boring, useless photos ever taken. And when you see them, you wonder who the heck is ever gonna look at them. The answer is probably no one. But to us, it doesn't matter. Because all that's important is that we know they're in there in case we ever need them. Which we won't. But probably the most important thing to know about Filipinos is how we communicate. And if you haven't noticed it yet, Filipinos are incredibly vague. Getting a straight answer out of a Filipina in a clear, unambiguous way is like trying to catch a fly with chopsticks.
Hey, Mr. Miyagi, look!
Daniel-san can do it, but don't count on ever mastering the ability. And it's not necessarily because she doesn't know your language. Filipinos don't even get straight answers from each other. Here's a typical conversation you might have with your girlfriend. Have you eaten, hon? A while back. So, are you hungry? I ate a little at lunch. Now, it should be obvious what you're asking, but she's giving you vague answers. So you decide to be precise. Do you have the urge to put food in your mouth at the present time? You phrase it in such a way that the question is airtight, and it figures she has to give you a direct response. But she looks at you and says, "It's up to you." No matter how you ask it, a Filipino will make it as difficult as humanly possible to get the required answer. And if you don't ask, she's gonna be upset that you let her go without food. Sometimes we can be really hard to communicate with, even if you understand what words we're using. But that can be tricky too, because just a slight difference in pronunciation can derail a whole conversation. I just did a video about how Westerners sometimes butcher our language when they try to use it, but we sure do the same thing to yours. We often think we're speaking English, but it doesn't sound that way to you. Here's a few examples. We call it broccoli. You call it broccoli. We say category. You say category. An embryo is an embryo. We say associate, and you say associate. To us, a hippopotamus is a hippopotamus. Filipinos call it an attache. You call it an attaché. And you'll never guess this last one. We call it Robitussin. Well, you know it as Robitussin. And you know that famous vapor rub? We call it Vicks. And we use it for almost everything. We believe that sticking a Vicks inhaler up your nose while traveling will prevent motion sickness. We even rub Vicks on the bottom of our feet to keep sickness from entering our bodies while we sleep. Filipinos aren't very logical sometimes, but we sure love our Vicks. And if you end up going to the doctor, get ready for a slightly different experience. Appointments aren't scheduled the same way yours are. Because Filipinos are never on time, doctors use a policy of first come, first served on the day of the appointment. This guarantees that the doctor will have a steady stream of patients, but it also means that unless you wake up at 5 a.m. and stand outside the office, you might be waiting all day to see the doctor. Something else that can take all day is going to the store to buy anything that uses electricity. Because before you're allowed to take it to the cashier, many places require that it be tested first. Like if you're buying a bunch of light bulbs, they'll take every single one out of their packaging and make sure it lights up before you can buy them. In the West, you assume that the products in the store are gonna work, and if they don't, you'll just bring them back. But here they really don't want you to return anything. You still have a warranty, but returning products here is a nightmare that usually involves the salesperson getting the manager, followed by 30 minutes of discussion. And if you don't have your receipt, forget about it. But even when you successfully buy something and bring it home, don't expect to find it again, especially if your Filipina gets her hands on it, because it won't end up where she found it. A lot of Filipinos just don't put things away. We're glad you have a nice assortment of tools, and we're happy to borrow your screwdriver or your duct tape. But somehow, they never quite make it back to the toolbox, and you'll probably find them just laying around where we use them. Now, I know that ticks you off, but please don't get too mad. We promise to do better next time, even though we won't. But now let's go from bad habits to bedroom habits. 3 years ago, I made a video about how Filipinos like to hold your lumber while you slumber. That's become one of my catchphrases and also one of my most watched videos. And I even made a funny skit about Filipinos being lumberjacks. But for some reason, people are suddenly asking me about it again, and they want to know if it's true. Yes, it's true. After reading thousands of comments and talking to hundreds of women over the past few years, it turns out it's an Asian thing in general, and a Filipina thing in particular. Western women sometimes do it too, but not nearly as much as Filipinas, which you guys confirmed. I even asked all my friends, and a majority of us do the same thing. But now the question is, why? I'm not sure exactly why I do it, but it helps put me to sleep. Maybe like a handheld pacifier. If I had to guess, I'd say it's about security, or in the case of a Filipina, insecurity. As long as we have a firm grip on your manhood, we know it's not sneaking away in the middle of the night to go find some other womanhood. Plus, it just makes a perfect handle to hold while you're asleep. It's a win-win. Now, a lot of you guys said there's no way you could fall asleep with someone holding your lumber because you'd end up with a woodpecker. But you get used to it, and it's not so much a sexual thing as it is a comfort thing. But what about the activities that are more than just comfort? Well, the things I'm about to mention are not universal. Everybody's different. So when you say, my partner's not like that, I'm not surprised. But I've listened to a lot of girl talk, and I've also heard from thousands of foreigners, so I'm in a pretty good position to make some general observations, and I'm happy to share what I've learned. If you're looking for someone who's a know-it-all in the bedroom department, you're probably looking in the wrong country. Because even if we're not virgins, most of us aren't exactly well-rounded with all the different carnal activities. When it comes to oral adventures, we're most likely a rookie, and it'll be your job to provide the proper coaching. We're just used to the basics, but we're eager to learn if you're willing to teach. And that goes for the other stuff as well. We don't have much experience with things like toys or advanced positions. And there's one thing in particular we're not very good at giving: feedback. In our world, people don't talk much while they're doing the deed, so you might have to figure out how she's feeling without any verbal cues. One thing you might find unusual is that many of us like to be marked, like getting hickeys on our necks. I know that almost sounds like a high school thing, and I'm not sure why we like it. But if you look carefully, you can see the little telltale marks that are left over from a night of passion. I guess Filipino guys are notorious for inflicting hickeys, maybe as a way of marking their territory. But we Filipinos don't seem to mind, and we always tease each other when we spot one. As you can see guys, I haven't been having any nights of passion lately, but a girl can always dream. Well, that's it for this episode, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about the strange little things that make us Filipino. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Tuesday with something new. Till next time, folks. If you think about it, I'm kind of like your nurse, attending to your needs and making sure you get a healthy dose of what's good for you in the form of informational and funny videos. After all, laughter is the best medicine. The only thing I ask for my service is that you hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so I'll know when you need assistance. Please also check out my Patreon page for extra content and exclusive features. And while you're recuperating, why not enjoy some of my other videos too? So, are you ready?